My name is Kai Soren, and for 19 years of my life, I was nobody special. In a world divided by designation alphas, betas, and omegas, I had always been a beta, the middle ground, the unremarkable, the kind of person who fills the background of someone else's story. No powerful pheromones, no dramatic second gender awakening, no destiny written in my biology. Just Kai. Ordinary, invisible, forgettable Kai. I didn't mind, or at least that's what I told myself every morning when I tied my worn sneakers and walked through the iron gates of Asheville University. Asheville was a prestigious school, the kind that accepted people based on designation scores as much as academic ones. Alphas occupied the top floors of the dormitories, their authority unquestioned. Their presence felt the moment they walked into a room. Omegas were rare, protected, sought after, living with special accommodations and careful schedules built around their heat cycles. And betas like me? We were the majority. We made up 60% of the population and somehow still managed to be the least talked about. I studied literature. I worked part-time at the campus cafe 3 nights a week. I had 2 best friends, Mira, a bubbly beta girl who talked too fast and laughed too loud, and Jin, a quiet omega boy who wore noise-canceling headphones everywhere and communicated mostly through sticky notes. Life was small, but it was mine. That all changed on a Tuesday in October, when I first saw Elon Voss. He walked into Professor Hannah's morning seminar like he owned the room, which, honestly, an alpha of his caliber probably did. Elon Voss was 21, a third-year economics major, the kind of person who made the air feel different just by existing in it. Not in the aggressive, suffocating way some alphas carried themselves. His presence was more like a low, steady hum, calm, controlled, but undeniably there. He was tall, broad-shouldered in that quiet, unhurried way, dark hair that fell just past his ears, eyes the color of deep amber, the kind that caught light and held it. He wore a simple gray pullover and dark jeans, and somehow still looked more put together than anyone in a suit. He sat 2 rows in front of me. I noticed him the way you notice a storm approaching on a clear day, not with fear, but with a kind of involuntary attention. Like your body registers something before your brain catches up. I looked away quickly and opened my notebook. He's an alpha, reminded myself. He exists in a completely different world than you. And that should have been the end of it. For 2 weeks, Elon Voss was just a face in my Monday-Wednesday seminar. We had never spoken. I doubted he even knew my name. Then came the library incident. It was late past 9 o'clock, the kind of dark that settles heavy over campus in autumn. I was in the east wing of the Asheville Library, tucked into my favorite corner spot behind the periodicals shelf, surrounded by 3 stacks of poetry anthologies and an untouched cup of chamomile tea. I was working on my thesis proposal, a comparative analysis of longing in contemporary versus classical verse, and I was stuck. Not writer's block stuck. More like existentially questioning every choice, every made stuck. I noticed anyone else in the aisle until a book landed on the table across from me with a soft thud. I looked up. Elon Voss stood there, holding 2 books, looking vaguely surprised to find someone occupying his corner. "Oh," he said. His voice was low, unhurried. "Oh," I replied brilliantly. He looked at the empty chair across from me, then at the rest of the nearly deserted library, then back at me. "Do you mind? The study rooms are all booked." An alpha asking me for permission. "Sure," I said, "because what else do you say?" He sat. He opened his book. He didn't say another word for 45 minutes, and somehow it was the most comfortable silence I had experienced in years. It became a habit without either of us deciding it would. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, we ended up in that same corner. Sometimes we arrived at the same time. Sometimes one of us was already there. We developed an unspoken agreement. He took the left side of the table. I took the right. He always had black coffee. I always had tea. He never asked what I was working on, and I never asked him either. But slowly, inevitably, words crept in.
What's that one about?
He asked one evening, nodding toward the collection of Pablo Neruda poems open in my hands. Longing, I said, "Mostly?" He was quiet for a moment. "Is that your thesis?" Longing? The anatomy of it. Yeah. How poets across different eras tried to give language to something that's fundamentally wordless. He considered that, then sounds painful. I smiled without meaning to. The best things usually are. He looked at me then, really looked, the way people rarely do, and something in his expression shifted. Not dramatically, just a small, quiet opening, like a window unlatching. "Elon," he said, extending his hand across the stacks of books. "Kai," I replied, and shook it. His grip was warm, firm without force. I told myself the flutter in my chest was just low blood sugar. November arrived cold and strange. I woke up one Monday morning feeling off. Not sick exactly. More like staticky. Like the frequency of my body had been bumped slightly out of tune. I was warm despite the cold air pouring through my dorm window. My skin felt sensitive, the texture of my sheets almost abrasive. My heart was moving too fast for someone who was just lying still. I ignored it. I went to class. I took notes. I worked my cafe shift. I told Mira I was fine when she said I looked flushed. I told myself it was the beginning of a cold, or maybe anxiety. Or maybe I hadn't slept enough. By Wednesday, the warmth had intensified. By Thursday, it had become something I couldn't ignore. It started as a restlessness, deep in my bones, an ache I couldn't locate or name. By evening, my thoughts had gone soft and slow, like trying to think through water. I kept losing track of sentences midway through. My appetite disappeared. Scents that I'd never paid attention to before suddenly became overwhelming. The cafeteria smell, the cleaning products in the hallway, the 100 layers of different people's presence pressed into the university walls, and underneath all of it, like a thread being pulled tight, was something that felt like need. A formless, directionless need that I didn't have words for. I was walking back from my last class of the day, my knees buckled in the middle of the courtyard. I caught myself on a bench, sat down hard, pressed the back of my cold hand to my burning cheek. What is happening to me? Kai. I looked up. Elon was standing a few feet away, his bag over one shoulder, his expression shifting from casual recognition to something sharper, more alert. His nostrils flared almost imperceptibly. A reflex. I realized distantly, not a choice. "You don't look okay," he said. Stepping closer, "I'm fine," I said automatically. He was close enough now that I could smell him cedar. Cold air, and something underneath that was purely, distinctly him. And for some reason, that scent cut right through the fog in my head like a cool blade. My whole body leaned toward it instinctively before I caught myself. Elon's eyes had gone very still. "Very careful, Kai," he said quietly. "When was your last designation check?" I stared at him. "What?" "I'm a beta. Betas don't need. How long have you been feeling like this?" I opened my mouth, closed it. "A few days." Something moved across his face. Not pity. Something more complex than that. Careful, steady concern. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," he said. And he crouched down so we were at eye level, which was somehow more alarming than anything else. "I think you need to go to the campus medical center." "Right now, why?" "It's probably just Kai." His voice was quiet but absolute. "I can smell you." The words landed like stones in still water. In this world, scent was designation. Betas had neutral scents, barely perceptible, unremarkable, but omegas. Omegas in the early stages of their first heat had a scent that was unmistakable, particularly to alphas. "That's not possible," I whispered. "I'm a beta. I've been tested. I've always been. Late emergence exists," he said. "It's rare, but it happens." He held my gaze steadily. "You need to go to medical. I'll take you." The doctor said the words like they were clinical. Simple. Just a reclassification on a form. A checkbox being moved from one column to another. but sitting in that sterile white room with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Those words rearranged something fundamental inside me. I wasn't a beta. I had never been a beta. Light emergence was real, but uncommon, roughly 1 in 300. Betas turned out to be omegas, whose biology simply took longer to fully activate. The suppression could last well into adulthood before the body finally overrode it. And when it did, the first heat typically came fast and hard, the system making up for lost time. "You're in the preheat phase right now," the doctor explained. "Full onset will likely begin within 24 to 48 hours. We're going to get you set up in one of our designated care rooms. We'll contact your emergency." "No," I said sharply. Then quieter, "No, I don't. My family doesn't know yet. I need to. I need a minute." She nodded, patient and professional, and left to give me that minute. I stared at my hands. 19 years. 19 years of being unremarkable, and apparently my own body had been lying to me the entire time. The door opened softly. Elon had waited in the hallway, had insisted on waiting, actually, despite me telling him 3 times that he didn't have to. He leaned in the doorway now, reading my expression. "You okay?" I laughed. It came out a little broken. Apparently I'm an omega. "The fact remains that your credentials, my credentials, were used by someone else," Eli said calmly, "because I wasn't here. Do you have anyone who can confirm that?" Eli opened his mouth, then closed it. He'd gone straight home that evening. Alone. He'd had dinner alone. He'd worked from home alone. He had no alibi. Patricia folded her hands. "Mr. Park, pending a full investigation, I'm afraid we have to ask you to surrender your access badge and leave the premises. Your internship is suspended effective immediately." The room was very quiet. Eli looked at Greg. Greg looked at the wall. Eli stood, placed his badge on the desk with quiet dignity, and walked out. He made it to the elevator before the sting behind his eyes became something more. He pressed the button for the lobby. The doors began to slide shut, and then a hand shot between them. The doors bounced. Back open. Adrian Kale stepped into the elevator. He was carrying his jacket over one arm and his phone in his hand, which he lowered when he saw Eli's face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "They suspended me," Eli said. His voice was remarkably steady. "They said I accessed confidential files." "I didn't." Adrian said nothing. "I know how it looks," Eli continued, staring straight at the elevator doors as they slid shut again and the car began to descend. "I know I'm just an intern, and the log says what the log says. But I need you to know, whoever you are to this company, I need someone here to know that I didn't do it." "Sorry, you probably don't even remember my name, Eli Park," Adrian said quietly. "You revised the Halcyon timeline on your first day. You fixed the Q3 weighting formula when I left you a note about it, and then found the deeper flaw in the dataset that I had missed. You arrive at 8:30 every morning. You leave between 6:15 and 6:45 every evening. And last Tuesday, you swiped out at 6:28. Eli turned to look at him. Adrian was already looking at his phone, but not reading it. Just holding it. "I know," he said simply. "I know you didn't do it." The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. "Go home, Eli," Adrian said. "I'll take care of it." The next morning, Eli sat in his small apartment over a cup of tea, trying to decide what to do. He could fight it. He believed in fighting. He believed in doing things the right way, through the right channels, with evidence and patience. But he was 23 and they were established. And the right way sometimes took a very long time. His phone buzzed. An unknown number, he answered it. "Mr. Park?" It was Patricia Mills. Her voice sounded different, careful. "I'm calling to inform you that your access badge has been reinstated. The investigation into the file access incident has been closed. We apologize for the disruption to your internship." "Closed?" Eli sat up. "What do you mean closed?" "The real access log was recovered. A full forensic review determined that your credentials were used remotely without your knowledge. The matter has been addressed internally. A pause. "I'll see you tomorrow morning, Mr. Park." The call ended. Eli stared at his phone for a long time. He actually did it. He didn't know how. He didn't know what Adrian had said or done or how quickly he'd moved. But the knowledge that someone, a nearly silent, unreachable man, 30 floors above him, had believed him and acted on that belief. Something warm settled in Eli's chest and refused to move. When he returned to the office the next morning, the atmosphere was strange. Dana was at her desk, head down, unusually quiet. Greg's usual corner-of-the-mouth smirk was completely absent. A few other colleagues smiled at Eli, genuine smiles. The kind people gave when they were relieved a wrong had been righted. Nobody said anything outright, but by noon, Eli had heard through the grapevine that Dana Cho had been placed on a formal performance review for manipulating internal systems. The company's careful, HR-approved way of saying what she'd actually done. Eli sat at his desk and breathed. He wasn't the kind of person who celebrated other people's downfall. He didn't feel triumphant. He just felt steady, restored. At 2 p.m., his computer pinged with an internal calendar invite. Meeting request from A. Kale time. 4:30 p.m. location. Office 3201. Subject. Project assignment. Lee knocked at exactly 4:30. Come in. Adrian's office was large but not ostentatious. Floor 2 ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. A clean, dark desk. Bookshelves lined with actual well-read books. And on the corner of the desk that framed photo, close enough now that Eli could almost see it. He didn't stare. He sat across from Adrian, who was reviewing something on a tablet. "I'm assigning you to the Halcyon account directly," Adrian said, setting the tablet down. "Not as support staff. As a junior consultant, co-reporting to me." Eli blinked. "I'm an intern. You won't be as of Monday. I'm converting your position. The paperwork goes through HR today. I've been here 3 weeks. I'm aware. People are going to talk. They already do. About everything to no effect." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Do you want the position or not?" Eli looked at him. "Yes, I do. But I want to earn it. You have been earning it. That's why I'm offering it." Pause. "Unless you'd like to spend another few months making coffee and having your work taken credit for by people who are afraid of you." A beat of silence. "Oh," Eli said. "I'd rather not do that." The faintest suggestion of something crossed Adrian's face. It might have been a smile. It was gone before Eli could be sure. "Good," said Adrian. "Come in at 8 tomorrow. We'll go over the Halcyon brief." That evening, Eli walked home through the early autumn streets, leaves skimming the pavement. The city's evening light turning everything gold and amber. He was thinking about gray eyes and 2-word sticky notes and the warmth of being believed in. Without being asked, he pressed his hands into his jacket pockets. "Don't," he told himself firmly. "He's your boss." He walked faster. It didn't help. The next 3 months were the most alive Eli had ever felt. Working directly with Adrian was nothing like Eli expected. He'd anticipated cold efficiency, clipped instructions, the kind of professional distance that some brilliant people used as armor, and there was some of that. Adrian was precise, exacting, and had exactly 0 patience for work that wasn't excellent. But he was also patient with Eli specifically. Patient in a way that wasn't lenient. He pushed Eli harder than anyone else, but in a way that assumed competence before failure. He explained his reasoning. He asked Eli's opinion. And when Eli disagreed with him, which Eli did, carefully but directly, Adrian listened. Actually listened. "You're wrong about the meridian segmentation," Eli said one evening. It was past 7, the office empty around them. The city lights beginning to bloom beyond the windows. Adrian looked up from the whiteboard, where he'd been mapping out a strategy. "Explain." He said, "You're splitting the consumer base by age bracket, but the data shows the behavioral clustering doesn't follow age. It follows lifestyle stage. A 25-year-old who just bought a house and a 40-year-old who just went through a divorce are making the same purchasing decisions for different reasons but through the same channels. If you split by age, you'll miss both of them. Silence. Then Adrian picked up the eraser, wiped the board clean, and said, "Show me." Eli walked to the WHIT board. And for the next hour, they rebuilt the strategy together. Side by side, the marker passing between them, their ideas building on each other the way good ideas do, naturally, without ego, each one making the others better. It was 9 p.m. when they finished. Adrian stepped back and looked at the board. "This is better," he said. "I think so too." A silence. A comfortable one, which surprised Eli, because silences with most people felt like gaps he had to fill. "You should go home," Adrian said. "So should you." Adrian glanced at him sidelong. "I have more work." "You always have more work." "That's not a reason." Eli picked up his jacket. "Good night, Adrian." He was almost at the door when he realized he'd used his first name. Adrian's first name. Not Mr. Kale. Not sir. He hadn't even planned it. It had just come out. He half turned, bracing for a correction, but Adrian just said, quietly, "Good night." Eli. It was raining the first time Eli saw the photo clearly. A November storm had rattled the windows all morning, and the office was warm and slightly muffled, the usual sounds of the city replaced by steady gray rain. Eli had come in to drop off a revised deck before a meeting, and Adrian's office was empty. He was in the boardroom downstairs. Eli shouldn't have looked. He did anyway. Just for a moment, the photo on the corner of the desk showed two people. One of them was clearly a younger Adrian, less composed, grinning in a way that made him almost unrecognizable. Sitting on what looked like a beach at sunset, the other person was Eli. He spun around. Adrian was standing in the doorway. "Sorry," Eli said immediately. "I brought the revised deck." It's fine." Adrian walked to his desk, set down a folder. He glanced at the photo, then at Eli. "That's from 5 years ago. We were in Portugal. Eli hadn't meant to ask. A pause. "My husband," Adrian said, simply, matter-of-factly, the way someone says a word that so central to them it doesn't need decoration. Then he picked up the deck and opened it, and the conversation moved forward. And Eli stood very still for exactly 1 second before doing the same. His husband, of course. Of course, Adrian Kale was married. Of course, this person who had believed in Eli and changed the direction of his career and made him feel seen in ways he hadn't expected, of course. He was unavailable. Of course, Eli went back to his desk,